Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Vento Aureo, or Golden Wind if you prefer, episode 24. So yeah, different setting, recording this Saturday morning. It's as simple as that. It's just the best place to record for at this point. Either way. So yeah, we have another episode. Last time we finished off the Narancia two-parter, where Narancia had to take on Squalo and Tiziano, and there stands Crash and Talking Head. And it was a great two-parter. I actually heard that apparently in the manga it wasn't like that great of a part of the series. It like was a lot of people kind of like just weren't as into it, but the anime like made it that much more like explosive and grand and everything. And I mean, I'm not a manga reader, and I said before I personally don't like manga. I think I just don't like it as a medium. I don't think it's that entertaining. But I'm kind of wondering from a manga reader's perspective if that is true. If that part in the manga just wasn't as entertaining as the anime made it seem. And if that's the case, then that means that David Productions is doing their job. They're making the series exciting to watch. And I feel that with any show, that it is the job of the animation studio to make it more exciting than it could ever be in print. Because they're animating. The scenes are animated, it's voice acted, there's a score behind it. All of that has to make it more grand and more exciting, again, than the manga could ever be. And granted, I honestly think that there's pretty much no example that at least I can think of where that hasn't happened, to be fair, even with anime I don't like. Just because, again, personally, I don't like manga as a medium. I don't think it's exciting. And I've read manga. It's not that I haven't read any. I've read plenty of manga. I've read One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, Fruits Basket. And while the story can be tighter and everything, the entertainment factor is just not there for the manga. Not even for like some of my favorite series, like One Piece. Like, even in One Piece, it's not entertaining as a medium. And I love One Piece. I mean, again, the story's the same, but it's not as entertaining. It's not fun. It's not exciting outside of the animation. So, at least that's my opinion. But, so we're moving on, and we're with with Bruno's gang still trying to escape from Venice. And that's pretty much the main gist of what's going on right now. They upset the boss, they have betrayed the boss, and now he's sending his higher ranking goons after him, after them. And they're just trying to escape. They're just trying to get out. Now, we still haven't seen the leader of the assassination squad. He still hasn't actually had his fight with them, and I'm still waiting for that to happen. We've only gotten a brief glimpse at his stand prior to this, and we just have really no big information on him. On top of that, there is that other new character in the intro, who I am guessing, as you know, is the boss's right hand. Based on that small bit where at the end of a couple episodes back, he calls out the hit on them, basically. Calls out like, oh, the boss wants Bruno and Giorno dead. It's the person at the end talking I mentioned before, who was a voice we hadn't heard, to my knowledge. So yeah, I was thinking that was that guy. But I don't know who the character is or like what their deal is. Like, I have no clue. I also obviously don't know what references we're gonna get with future stands and characters and all that. But one other interesting thing to note is, so apparently other anime YouTubers, most notably Chibi Reviews, has even noted about Squalo and Tiziano being a couple. And so it's not just me. It's not just like it wasn't just like me thinking that and kind of seeing that in them. No, apparently they are actually a couple. But I guess in the manga it was like very, very skimmed over. It was definitely made more apparent here. And even though they're bad guys, and they're definitely not doing good here because of it, it's still cool to see that kind of representation. And it's actually good to see representation on a negative side too, in a way, because some people will try to argue against that, saying, "Oh no, representation has to be good. It's just making us look bad. It's just giving us a bad name." And it's like, here's the thing: it's realistic. Not all LGBT people are good. There are plenty of bad gay people, plenty of bad lesbians, plenty of bad trans people. That's just the truth. Whether they're just horrible, disgusting people, whether they're abusing systems, whatever. There are plenty of bad people in the LGBT community. And I think most people realize that, and most people acknowledge that even. Like, I mean, almost the entirety of the LGBT community disowns, you could say, Milo Yiannopoulos, I think it's pronounced. I might be completely wrong on that, but because he's horrible. And he's gay. But that's the thing. If you want representation, and if you want good representation, you have to show both sides. You have to. And, I mean, to be fair, so far I don't think we've gotten, like, a positive side. There was also a hint at another gay couple, but they were also presumably bad guys. They were in the execution squad. So, we haven't gotten a positive couple, which is a little bothersome, a little problematic. But I definitely don't think that that is intentional to be like that. I really don't think that it's like, I don't think the creator is making that big of a deal out of relationships in general. Like, even with Squirrel and Tiziano, yes, it was obvious, but at the same time, it's like, it wasn't like this massive story-defining deal. So I do hope for, obviously, a more positive representation in JoJo. And, I mean, obviously, a favorite option for that for me would be Narancia and Fugo, but that's probably not going to happen. But either way, I'm good that we got something at least, you know? And we'll see where it goes, we'll see what happens from there, and we'll see if we get more and better representation in the future. Either way. So yeah, I know nothing about what's coming this episode. All I know is they're most likely still trying to escape from Venice. I don't see why they wouldn't be. I'm sure that everyone is healed up and ready to go. So we're going to get on with this because I do have to take a shower and get ready for tonight and stuff. And I'm going to be going out to the store and to a house viewing and stuff later. So yeah. So let's get going. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so the gang is headed to Sardinia, but on the way they get attacked by a stand called Notorious B.I.G, or I guess they just called it Notorious Big, as it was actually said in the episode. So they get attacked right before they get on, and then on the plane. Notorious Big is a stand obviously named after the rapper Notorious B.I.G. That seems to activate upon its user's death, which basically means that the user, who, by the way, I found out his name was Connie, was sent to Bruno's team, Bruno's gang, basically on a suicide mission. He was sent there to die, which is kind of sick and twisted if you think about it. Like, he was sent there for the sole purpose of dying in order to activate his stand that would track Bruno's gang. I mean, I know the boss is pretty messed up, but that's messed up. So, Notorious B.I.G., after its owner's death, takes the form of this giant wad of flesh, basically. Prior to that, it did seem to have a more humanoid form, from what we saw when it was attached to Connie. But after Connie's death, it was definitely more of this giant glob of flesh. It seems to track its target by movement, whatever is currently moving the fastest. Now, Giorno first discovers it on the plane when he hears some movement inside the cooler, and then finds a bunch of disembodied fingers, which are mostly just bone at that point. And he noted that there was no sense of life, that he couldn't sense any life, and which makes this really weird, because a stand, like, isn't a stand a person's life energy by definition? Isn't that what a stand is? So this stand not only just activating upon the user's death, but being a completely separate entity following, not even connected obviously to the user anymore. It's like, that alone is insane to think about. And it's not really the first time we've had stands that are like that. I guess you would kind of consider Notorious B.I.G. a remote stand, in the way that it's not like directly connected to the user. But even remote stands will like disappear if their user dies. This one doesn't activate until the user dies, at least not in its full potential. Again, it was there prior to it, but it wasn't doing anything. It wasn't trying to avoid the bullets. It wasn't trying to stop them. I don't think it really had much power. It probably couldn't do any special things prior to death. It could probably only like just do some normal physical attacks and stuff. But anyways, they fight it, and Giorno ends up losing both his arms through the fight. But as I did realize, he did drop his ladybug brooch, and he had already activated some life energy within that. That was super obvious. It's not, they weren't even really trying to hide it, but I guess the rest of the gang didn't notice, most notably Bruno and all. We saw that Mista, Narancha, pretty much all of them were infected at one point or another. I think Bruno was the only one who wasn't. which is interesting. And Trish almost got infected, but she was saved. And speaking of Trish, Trish was actually a pretty large focus in the second half of this episode. The first half was definitely more Giorno focused, with him, you know, finding Notorious B.I.G. on the plane and everything, and getting Mista involved, and then having to, you know, take off his own arms to try to get rid of it. But then in the second half, after they had thought they got rid of it already, and were kind of nursing Giorno back to health and everything, at that point, it shifted focus to Trish. She's on the plane, she's alone at the moment, and she notices what looks like a ball outside on the plane. And that kind of reminds me, I think it was a Twilight Zone episode, where there's this guy who's on a plane and he starts seeing like a person on the wing of the plane or something like that. I don't remember all the details, but I think that's a Twilight Zone episode. It reminded me of that for some reason, even though it's not quite the same. But yeah, so she sees a ball, but it disappears, so she's wondering if she really saw it. And it's like instantly I realized, yeah, no, that's Notorious B.I.G. It was a ball of flesh. And it's proven right, and it's put together that since it tracks and attaches itself to things that are moving, apparently that's not just living things, because it did so with the plane as well. Which is good to know, that you don't actually have to be alive, you don't have to be living, it doesn't have to be like a human or an animal or whatnot to be affected, to be attached to by this thing. But we see it gets in and starts to go after Trish, and that's kind of where the episode leaves off. So, we know Trish has a stand. We don't know what it is at this point, but we know she has a stand. And I actually already forgot what we saw. We saw like a little bit of what its power could be, but I forgot what it was. Back around the train and all. Which is a good thing. But we also see that her stand is featured in the opening. So I definitely think that's going to be coming into play soon. And I'm definitely thinking next episode. The focus we have on her in the second half of this episode, the fact that Giorno is out of commission, at least for the time being, kind of leads me to believe that this focus on Trish is not accidental, that they're doing this on purpose, and that they're about to reveal her stand. It would make sense to me, from a narrative and from just the standpoint of, pun unintended, standpoint. Just the standpoint of how this episode was presented, you know? This is a really unique and interesting stand, though. And they were not only right in saying that they hadn't seen a stand like this before, we haven't seen a stand like this before. We as the viewers. So it definitely makes it more interesting and exciting and unique. Design-wise, obviously, there's not much to it. So nothing to really write home about there. It's just basically a glob of flesh. And even beforehand, it didn't look like that amazing or anything. It wasn't like anything special. And yeah, it's stand user Carne. Nothing really special about him either. Other than he looked really weird, like even weirder than the Beach Boy user, whose name I cannot think of at the moment. Just overall, it was a good episode. It wasn't as good as the last two episodes, in my opinion. It wasn't as gripping to me. Maybe it is because of my love for Narancia, but it didn't hook me in as much. It definitely hooked me in, don't get me wrong. It definitely did. Just not as much. I just don't feel like it was as good. That's not saying it wasn't good. But then again, that could all change with how it ends, too, because any two-parter or whatnot relies on both parts to determine its overall quality. So, and even the first episode of a two-parter, its quality is dependent on where it goes. because when you find out where it goes, you'll start to see how it's set up to that and everything. So yeah, I did very much enjoy that. It's definitely interesting. I'm definitely interested to see where it goes. And I'm excited. I'm excited to continue this, and I really do hope we get to find out Trish's stand next episode, or at least sometime in the near future. For now, thank you so much for tuning in, and tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Vento Aureo. Thank you so much, and for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles,